All right. Listen up. This is Shay Omasori, and we have another episode of the Boothish Podcast. And today we've got Matthew Bernier. Did I say your last name right?
Bernier. Close.
One more time.
Bernier.
Okay, so I've gotta be a little bit fancier as I say it. All right. So Matthew Bernier.
Oui.
All right, awesome. I took French. I'm pretty sure I failed French.
Sounds like it.
Fatality.
Matthew, as we start up this podcast, let the folks know who you are, where you're from, and what you do.
Yeah, Matthew Bernier, as Shay mentioned. I'm from Tucson, Arizona, or at least that's where I live currently. I run Flashbulb Memories Photo Booth, which is my booth company out here. I've been doing that for quite a while now, since 2015. I've got a number of gigs on the side, businesses that I've started, projects that I'm working on, always being an entrepreneur in every way, shape, and form. But my photo booth has been my kind of largest success and my biggest endeavor in my entrepreneurial world so far.
I did check out some of the things that you've got going on, and you do the photo booth thing, but it also looks like you were doing some web marketing.
Yeah, I do SEO, search engine optimization, some web development, content, UX, UI. Basically, the comprehensive web solutions for other businesses is another part of what I do.
And I guess that closely relates to the reason why I wanted to talk to you, which is how you grew your photo booth business to a six-figure business, really leaning in heavily on SEO and getting yourself in front of the right people in your area.
Yeah, SEO is ultimately the greatest success to my business, I'd say, and I think in every business is the largest contributing factor over time if you do it right.
Before we even get there, let's talk about how you got into the photo booth industry. How the hell did you find yourself here?
Yeah, so I was working full time for a corporation, doing just random stuff, but kind of in a role as like a project manager. But I kind of got to a tipping point where I decided, this isn't fun anymore. I'm not allowed to be creative. So I started looking elsewhere, figuring out, okay, what else could I do? And I realized, maybe I'm not just fed up with that specific role. It's just the idea of having a job, showing up every day, 9 to 5, doing the same thing. Kind of got
working
tired.
For the man.
Yeah, working for the man. I was ready for a change. So I started looking into what I could do as an entrepreneur. I've always been an entrepreneur at heart as a child, kind of growing up. And I used to sell and mod Xboxes, PlayStations, like 11 years old, 12 years old. Doing this stuff. I've had random people. I put up an ad on Craigslist. I'd have these, 40-year-old guys or like 30-year-old, 20-year-old, whatever guys coming to my house, dropping off their super expensive computers or PlayStations. They'd come back, you'd go to their car, give it to them, they'd hand me cash. My neighbors thought I was a drug dealer, I'm sure, for some time.
Matthew's pushing dope out of the back door.
Yeah.
So you always had that entrepreneurial spirit. How did you bump into these booths?
Yeah, so entrepreneurial spirit kind of got me searching and thinking, what could I do? I don't remember the exact moment or what led up to it, but I believe I was looking into business ideas and essentially punching in keywords like 100 business ideas I could start tomorrow, or businesses I could start with under 20 grand. Just kind of like, what can I actually go out and do that has potential to be successful based on maybe what someone else was recommending or someone else did. So I stumbled across the photo booth idea. Somewhere in that search, again, not sure where I exactly landed on that, but started looking into it and thought, okay, this makes sense. I've got a background in photography, I've got a background in, tech, software, just kind of being a nerd and figuring things out like that. And it felt like it could be the right fit. So at that point, I started researching, what the industry is about, the equipment, the software, other companies that are doing this successfully, kind of how to get into it. And within a few months had started my company, filed my documents here as to start a business and started purchasing equipment.
So you saw that you had the skills that you needed in order to I guess, run the photo booth business. Financially, did the numbers seem like they made sense at that time?
So I'm going to be honest. I always tell people to do this, and it's from my own learning of my own mistakes, but did not do a whole bunch of market research, didn't look into customer, didn't look into acquisition costs, didn't necessarily lay out finances or a plan for the next 1 or 5 years. I just kind of figured, okay, with what I calculated on an onset investment of what I'm going to have to pay out of pocket over the next year to kind of start this up, and then a base idea of the potential for what I could make each event, it just made sense. So I didn't really crunch the numbers. It just kind of felt right to me at the time, which come to learn later was a mistake. I could have done a lot of things differently at the start to be more successful quicker, but learning experience nonetheless.
Besides the photo booths, what else did you consider though?
Oh gosh, I know there was some stuff about starting a cleaning business, like doing window cleaning for corporate.
Yeah.
I was actually in at the time network marketing company and thought about going full in with that, but for me that was just not my thing. Kudos to those that can make it happen. But
network marketing, like MLL, MLM.
Yes,
yeah. Herbalife and all that. Okay.
Yep.
So you got the booth. Which photo booth did you purchase, or did you like build your own?
So I started looked at building my own. At the time I was not a handyman. I couldn't make things, didn't have ideas, manufacturing, whatever. So I just went out, looked to see what I could get. So I bought it. I think it was an ATA photo booth at the start. One of those lookalikes to the Photo Booth Supply Co., with the umbrella single pole design. So I got one of the like B1 versions of those. Ended up switching booths 2 or 3 times before I landed on where I am. So again, wasted a lot of money going through purchasing cycles and selling old equipment. But yeah, ATA was the one I landed with at the start.
Was there any particular reason that you chose that ATA booth?
Yeah, I mean, it looked good and it was cheap. That was really the best option. I couldn't imagine spending at the time 2, 3, 4 times as much for something that to me seemed pretty close to similar, getting the job done.
So you got your booth, and tell me what happened next. How did you get your first customer and start rolling into the big money?
Yeah, so immediately got booking, started rolling in the dough, 6 figures in 6 months.
Woo! Yo, shout out. Yes.
Yeah, my success was not too great early on. So a bit of a late bloomer in that regard. But first customer, I think the first thing I did was I thought I would get all this equipment, throw up a website, and then I just start like breaking in the dough. That was my back of mind thought. But turned out that didn't end up happening. Hard enough time to even get a lead to my website, let alone convince them to hire me. At the time, I was pricing my services too at like $360 for 3 hours of service, full service, prints, everything. But I think I put an ad on Thumbtack, and that's where I ended up getting my first booking through a Thumbtack ad.
Do you remember how much you charged for that event?
Yeah, I mean, it was like 300,
375,
probably 350, 370 for the total event, and no tax added on that. Didn't know a thing about that at the time either.
So you did your first event off of Thumbtack, and what did you learn?
I learned how a wedding goes. It was my first wedding that I've ever actually been to, let alone worked. I had no idea what these terms were that they were mentioning. So I'm just like, shoot, I'm going to show up at the timing they said. I'm going to get there really early, try to figure it out. I was like Googling what a reception is, what the ceremony is. So it was interesting to learn, kind of be on the inside perspective of seeing how all that goes. Also ran into my first problems with the photo booth. I'm a perfectionist. So I try to test everything out, make sure everything's good to go beforehand. But don't remember the exact issue I ran into, but maybe like the flash wasn't working or the printer stopped, something like that. But got to deal with the stress firsthand of something not going right.
Tell me about that stress, though. Can you take yourself back to that moment when everything started to fall apart?
I can take you back to every moment, every time it falls apart, because it seems to happen more often than not. Definitely more well adjusted now, and I've got a great team to handle most of that stuff. But for sure, the first times that anything happened where it was like, crap, I can't continue. Like these photos aren't working, or they're showing up black, or the prints aren't coming out. Like something is wrong that's stopping me from delivering on kind of that promise. Definitely sucked. I'm thinking in my head like a million miles an hour, the hamster wheels spinning. Like, what's going on? How do I fix this? How do I troubleshoot this? And again, I'm pretty technical. My background, like working in tech and doing stuff and customer support, even I knew kind of like how to focus and do the things that I needed to troubleshoot. But it's still stressful when you've got a line of 50 people all waiting for a photo or waiting to take a picture. You're expected to operate and you're trying to troubleshoot this. So actually at that moment is when I think pretty much realized right away that I don't want to do this alone. And I started hiring an additional individual to assist with every single event. And to this day, like 99% of our events have 2 staff, so that if anything happened, one person can focus on solving those issues and the other can kind of be that guest support to make sure everything's going smooth. Everybody is like, all right, hey, this is what's going on, keep them informed, or be in touch with me if needed, so that it can be easier to solve and things just kind of flow more smoothly.
There's nothing worse than when you're trying to troubleshoot and you've got people right on your back saying, is it broken?
Yeah.
Is it broken? And it's like, guy, just back up a little bit, let me breathe, I'll figure this out, and we'll get this party back started. So past that Thumbtack event, though, how did you start to get more and more bookings from there?
Yeah, so I mean, it was more Thumbtack. I saw, obviously I got a booking, so I was like, hey, this works. I'm going to do another one, do another one. I ended up actually getting a decent number of reviews on Thumbtack as like my first
Nice.
source of referrals. So did that for a little bit.
And these were all like in like the $300-$400 range, right?
Yep.
Okay.
So the first couple of years at least were about that price. Started to put more effort into my website and just kind of build it out a little bit more. Obviously, I got some photos to work with, so I didn't have to rely on stock photos on everything as I did when I started it. So built that out a little bit, started to get a couple calls, a couple emails from various leads online, one or two referrals here or there that ended up converting to actual clients. And in reality, I think it's funny because as many leads as I got that failed to convert, usually due to price. I mean, I was charging under $400. Like, who's charging less than $400 for full service like this? So I thought that was kind of ironic as opposed to where I am now, but really struggled that first 2-year period to do anything substantial. Didn't actually make any money even until the third year in business for myself.
Define making money. What does that mean to you?
Making money is at the end of the year, after all the expenses are accounted for, I've actually I have cash to work with.
So it took you a couple of years to get there. What changed in that third year, or whichever year that it finally hit that you caught your stride? What did you start doing differently?
Yeah, so in the third year is when I started to change my prices, and it's also when I started to focus on SEO and really start to drive traffic to my business.
Which happened first?
I mean, they were pretty synonymous. The price changes happened over time. So it wasn't like January 1st, I'm doing this price and here's my prices for the next year. Okay. I think I kind of bumped it up 1 or 2, maybe 3 times throughout that year at the start as my first like price changes. But the price changes didn't, and again, even in that third year, when I say I was profitable, I mean barely. This wasn't like, oh, I made 6 figures now in my third year. This is great. It was like, all right, I made enough money to not close the business, but throughout that time, I had to find other work. I had to find other means of generating income, essentially, to support myself to keep the business alive.
What is it that made you take that shift and to start thinking more seriously about SEO?
The first part was I was an introvert. So at the time, I didn't like to talk to people. I didn't want to, like, terrified me to think about knocking on doors, making phone calls, essentially. It was like, how do I get people to just hire me? Like, I want someone to give me their money, send me an email, and like I can reply to it and be good to go. Like, I don't want to see them. I don't want to talk to them. I don't want to cold call them. Like, just give me your money. Be like, hey, I want to hire you. And I'll just say yes. Like, that'll be the ideal scenario in my mind. Yeah. And so, I mean, the part of that is advertising or SEO, which is just driving customers' traffic to you directly and getting them to make a purchasing decision. And because I was broke, I didn't have money for advertising. So it's like, all right, well, SEO, how does that work? And I decided to just dive in and start learning that firsthand.
So you're introverted and you didn't want to actively sell folks. As an introvert, how did you even like handle being at events and you've got hundreds of people like all around you swarming you the whole time?
Yeah. So, I mean, that part grew on me a bit. And I think it's a bit different. It's not so much that I'm 100% introverted across the board, but in these scenarios, it felt out of place to me to be in a zone where I have to like cold call a stranger,
okay,
as opposed to when I'm at those. Even though it was definitely weird at first, definitely I was awkward and trying to figure out like how to work with these people and how to flow. But just being in that environment, I think was a bit different because everyone's happy, everyone's like there to just like focus, doing the thing, taking a picture. They're not there to have a conversation with you. You're not there to sell them. So it felt differently in those moments too.
All right. So it's not an introversion. It's like, I don't want to be around people. It's just more, let's just say like nerves around picking up making full sales calls.
Sales, essentially. Okay. At the time.
All right. So that's different. Yeah. Nobody really, unless you kind of grew up in sales, like it's hard to, you've got to go through sales in order to be used to people telling you no. I used to be a telemarketer. So I actually got a kick out of it. Yeah, shame. And I was a telemarketer during like the financial crisis of like '08. So I was calling people, hey, you want to refinance your house? And everybody was getting refinance deals. So for me, it was just, it was a cakewalk. But I learned a lot about, I guess, just being able to get rejections. And also, even when I was a kid, I used to, I'm going to age myself, but they don't do this anymore. But those like those sales books that they have of like candy that you can sell to people? I don't know. I'm sure you're younger than me. How
Like
old are
it's
you?
a Boy Scout type styles, in school where you get like
Yeah,
the
it's
$1 world's best chocolate or something.
something like that. That's what us old
Yeah,
folks used to do. That's how they
yeah.
used to teach us sales back then. But I would go around to all the houses in my neighborhood and I would go sell candy door to door. So like I guess I've been kind of building that rejection
Yeah, that's great.
armor.
I gave the candy to my mom, and she went and took it to her friends and sold it. So yeah, never got that experience early on, but definitely valuable.
So you got to the point where where you took your SEO a little bit more seriously. How did you know that SEO is what you needed? Like what was that light bulb that hit for you?
I mean, it was partially research, just looking into how to drive traffic to a website or how to get more leads, how to get more customers, and started finding like I didn't know what SEO was before that, and so just kind of started hearing about the terms and understanding what it meant and how it works. And yeah, I just basically consumed every resource I could possibly find that was free on the internet at the time. So watching YouTube videos, reading blogs, following other people doing this, talking to people who are in the SEO field, and trying to learn from them, and just kind of applying everything that I did to my photo booth company to see the results.
Okay, and so what type of changes, just like on a high level, like what kind of changes were these that you were making?
In terms of the actual, like what I did on the website or what I
Yeah.
did for SEO, well, a high level, I would say keyword research, knowing what search terms matter for my business and customers looking for me. Implementing that keyword research through a number of HTML changes on the website, which nowadays are more, easier than anything. There's plugins and tools to kind of guide you through that experience, and building out content. So more written content on the site. I used to be under the impression of like, I want to keep it clean. I want this to look nice, be presentable. So I had like a one-page scrolling website that looked really nice. But what I came to find out is that's very bad for SEO. So I then decided at that moment to break it out into multiple pages and start doing linking in between the pages and focus keywords on each page that were specific to that page. So just kind of getting a start to developing that out. And that made a huge change right off the bat of not just focusing on design and making it look pretty, but looking at the technical side of it and saying, okay, sure, it needs to look good, but what are those elements with the multiple pages or the content that's missing? And once I built that out, it was kind of amazing to see those results firsthand of, oh, wow. So being pretty is not what it's all about in SEO terms.
So what year was this roughly, if you can ballpark it?
That was like maybe the very end of 2016, start of 2017.
Okay, so let's say 2017.
Yep.
Did you look at your competitors to see how well their SEO was constructed at that point?
Yeah, I mean, I would once I figured out what SEO was and kind of going about that. I was always, I'd always be watching my competitors locally and afar, not necessarily competitors, but inspiration afar, to see what they were doing, what was working well, kind of how their website was laid out, things that I could kind of steal from essentially and learn from.
Yeah.
But once I started finding out about SEO, I would do searches for like Tucson photo booth rental, and see who came up and who's at the top, and kind of set them out as my mark to destroy. To figure out,
Terminator vibes.
Yeah, exactly.
Go ahead.
Break it above or below, whatever. But yeah, I did start to strategize and track that kind of stuff.
So were you seeing that they were taking SEO seriously, or were they just kind of there just by, for no reason?
Well, at the time, my main competitors in the area had been around a long time. So, I mean, I was getting started and a couple people were in business for 5 years in the area. So that was like who I saw. And actually that was, what, now that I think about it, so the original inspiration behind the photo booth company was at a holiday party where I used to work. There was a photo booth and I was in there taking pictures all night. And I thought, this is so much fun. Like, it was the first time I'd ever experienced that outside of like a fair or a mall. And I thought, wait, this is someone's business. Like someone actually came here, got set up, is getting paid to do it. And so that was the company that I was kind of like striving to be at the time. And they were the number one ranked in the area. So I was really trying to follow them and figure out, but I'd say a few of the bigger players did have some kind of investment in SEO, but for the most part, it was lacking. People didn't know about it. They weren't doing it. It was just by chance. They'd been here long enough that they were ranking the way they were.
So how is it now for you? Are your competitors, do you see them taking SEO more seriously?
Yeah, 100%. I hear, I mean, obviously in the network, you see people chatting about this all the time. I know locally and regionally, people are talking, I mean, people have asked me for help. And at some point, I'm like, maybe a few years ago, I would have helped you with this, but now it's like, no, I'm not going to help my competitor.
Yeah.
But yeah, 100% people are starting to pay for SEO. I know a few people in the area that do pay for it, and I know the people they hired, and they're actually good people. So at the time, it had me worried, like, oh crap, I've got strong competition paying for like actually good SEO work.
Yeah.
But now I'm not so much concerned about it.
And why is that?
Just the amount of work that I've put in over the years to get me where I am now is producing infinite dividends in terms of organic reach and growth. And I continue to do that. So I haven't kicked back. I haven't stopped and said, oh, I'll be good for the next 10 years. Like every week or day, I continue to do stuff to put in the work to grow SEO and outside of SEO, other organic means to continue to drive traffic. And also at the point where I am now, I've really built a brand. So it's less about trying to get in front of new customers as it is about locking in the customers that have already expressed an interest in me through various means that they've interacted with us in the past or seen our work on various platforms or finding us for the first time. But SEO is still pivotal to my success and business and traffic that we get today for sure.
All right, so we're gonna get back to this SEO topic, but I want to transition to ask you this: when did you fully go full time with your photo booth business?
Yeah, it was 2 years into starting it that I went full time. Basically, I wasn't incredibly stupid at the time. Well, maybe a little bit, but I wasn't totally there. So at the time I started my business, I was like, all right, I'm going to keep my job and just do this on the side. It's mostly weekend weddings anyway, so let's just get the paycheck and continue. Within getting into close to that 2 year mark, I decided I can't take this anymore. I don't care if I'm not profitable yet. Like I just cannot be in this environment, in this job. So I set a date on the calendar, so I'm going to make it happen. And when I quit my job, which was February 2017, I believe, that I'm going to go full time in this and basically start like going to networking events, start talking to local businesses, like whatever I could to get out there and put myself out there and try to generate results. And at that time, the only way I knew how.
Wow, that's pretty ballsy. So it wasn't profitable, but you were just like, I'm getting the hell out of here and I'm going to go for it.
Yeah, and I don't recommend that to everyone. You hear a lot of people say work on your side hustle until it makes more than your full-time gig, and then you can think about if you want to quit or do them both. I'd say that's the wisest like financial approach to things. But at some point, it's a sink or swim mentality. Like you're going to dive in head first and just go for it, or your toe's going to be in the water and you're never going to really meet your potential of what you could do if you committed everything to it.
And what was your backup plan? You were going to be a male stripper in your local town, or?
I was working on my business degree at the time. So I graduated. I got my bachelor's in business. Right when I quit my job, I actually signed up for a master's program. So over the time I was doing this, that was the only other activity I was doing before I needed money for other work, was getting my master's. So I figured, I've got a decent background working for a great company, have business degrees to suit. Like if I really absolutely am at the bottom of my wit, like I could go get a job for a decent company and catch up on my bills. So I wasn't concerned about like, if I lose everything, how am I going to get back into the market, or how am I going to get a job or figure it out? I figured that one way or another, that was my absolute bottom. Worst case scenario, the mid level would have just been, I'll pivot to another business. Like I'll go wash windows because I can go buy equipment for that tomorrow and be profitable tonight kind of thing. So that was alternative in the meantime.
So it was a risky bet, but it was calculated, and you had some type of landing if you had to fall all the way down. That was you said 17, right?
17, yep.
17, all right. And then so that kind of coincides with when I think you said things really started to pay off for you, which was in 2018 when your SEO really started to take hold. Is that correct?
Yeah. That's when I started to actually see the fruits of my labor for the first time and saw that there was kind of what I expected out of the business, not necessarily reaching my full potential, but understanding, okay, this is working. I can keep doing this. Like this could actually be a full-time endeavor. This could be a profitable business.
So you said that you started to see the fruits of it. Can you tell me what kind of results you were getting?
Yeah, the biggest thing I saw was traffic. When I got like 1 or 2 leads in a week originally, and then a couple of years later, I'm getting 3 leads, then 5, then 10, then 15, then 20. 30 leads, like, okay, people are finding me. They're actually searching and seeing my business. So now my focus is different. It's how do I sell them? How do I capture them? How do I get the prices that I want from them? How do I position my products accordingly? How do I add stuff, et cetera? But yeah, just seeing the leads start funneling in and basically being busy taking phone calls and emails was an indicator of that success for me at the moment.
And how were you able to take that information and then start to change your pricing? Because you said you started at 400, but I guess let's say, what is your baseline price now?
Baseline price now, selfie station aside, for like an iPad rental, or we'll even say like iPad rental generally is starting at $1,000, but any of our full service booths that require people, prints, etc., basically starts at 2,500 on the low end, off weekend, non-busy day. Our average booking this year for all of the events that we've booked in 2022 is 4K.
Wow.
And that's before tax. Our taxes are charged to the customer after the fact, so it's not inclusive. So that's the number pre-tax, essentially.
How were you able to go from 400 to 4,000?
A lot of work.
Yeah.
The SEO game, really driving traffic and getting business, helped me to. I think what that really helped me do was figure things out faster. If I started the business, if I launched it, and the next day I got 50 leads a week or 100 leads a week, I would have figured things out a lot quicker. I probably would have priced a lot higher a lot sooner because I just couldn't handle that amount of demand. So started getting to the point where it actually pissed me off to do events. So I decided, am I going to quit doing this or am I going to make it worth it? Because I was still doing my own events at the time. So I'd go out to a wedding and I would have kind of this tolerance factor of, okay, if something goes wrong, or if the bride's acting like this, or if we have to stay late or whatever it is, just like what are those inconveniences that can add up before, after, during an event. And if I'm bothered by it so much that I say it wasn't worth it, then I'm charging too low. So I would just charge more, price higher. At the time, we had all of our prices published on our website because that's how I was trying to be competitive with the companies in our area. Was, hey, look what we do, look at our prices. They're like, look what we do, look at our prices. And at that point, it really is just a price decision for the customer. I'd say 90% of the time. So maybe I want to say 2.5, 3 years ago, at the very soonest, was when I decided I'm going to get rid of prices on our website. And at that point in time is when I saw the biggest increase, because essentially what I did is every time a new lead would come in, I'd add $100. I'd add $100. I'd add $100. I just keep doing it until people started saying no. So if I got a booking, and I was charging $1,000, like, this is awesome. If I got a booking, I was charging 15, this is awesome. 2, great. 25, amazing. 3, awesome. And it wasn't super fast. It wasn't like I got there in a month or everybody all of a sudden said yes.
Yeah.
But when I started looking back at the prior year, seeing what I did, how many events I did, and the total, figures financially, what we produced, I realized, wow, we could do a third as many events as some of these other big companies that are touting, X dollars a year, their numbers they're hitting. And it's much less stressful. We actually get better clientele. They treat us better. They're easier to work with. They're friends. They're people who are at their wedding or their events are also like similar customers and, looking to hire us. So kind of just changing that caliber over time aided in continuing to reinforce the prices that we were at, and helped me then build the brand out of it and really focus on who we were as a company, and not just a photo booth company, but why Flashbulb Memories is worth this. And people started to see that, and they started to tell us that, we wouldn't have to sell it. They would just say, I totally understand it. I want this. Like, how do we make it happen?
But so why is Flashbulb Memories worth it? You've got a selfie station and they've got a selfie station. You're at the top of Google, they're not at the top of Google. Why are you worth it?
Yeah,
how do you present that?
Of course, yeah. I think a lot of people struggle with in the selfie station is a good example because it's so similar. Whereas
hold on,
I could say
my
like
bad.
a full service.
Just so we can clarify, when you say selfie station, are you referring to an iPad photo booth?
Yeah, iPad photo booth, a typical ring light pop-up design that you can drop off and leave running for a week, and everything's fine. Mm-hmm. Very low cost, very low barrier to entry, very easy in terms of technical knowledge and what's needed. And it's very similar. I don't know how many products are on the market, but 100 products on the market, they're all virtually the same. So something like that is interesting. I think the way that we differentiate ourselves and how we get more money for those pretty much exact same experiences is through the brand and is through how we work with customers. When someone reaches out for a quote, they get a response back in minutes usually. I've got my phone on me all the time. The one thing I try to do is get to them before anybody else. Because when they see my response, like 80% of the time, the first thing I see back is, holy cow, thanks for responding so fast. Like I wasn't expecting an answer for another few days or whatever else. And sometimes just that initial moment to capture, they've already been through our website. They've already been on our Instagram. They've already kind of seen what we represent as a brand, that we know what we're talking about. We've got a bunch of reviews, a good standing in the business, and it looks like we know what we're doing. And then when we follow that up with customer service that is at the highest caliber that we can provide, they see how serious we are and that, wow, I want to work with a company that provides that level of service through and through. So that's how we compete with a service that is not product specific. And then when it comes to our products, we do have very product specific things within our full service offering, where it's focused on providing the highest possible quality that you can get out of a photo booth experience. So, we offer similar equipment that other people have. Like, yeah, we've got a DSLR, you've got a DSLR, we've got a Studio Flash, you've got a Studio Flash, but the end product and what we present and what we've continued to present consistently for years on end is proof in and of itself of what that looks like. And then when you read our reviews and you see brides saying things all the time, someone mentioned in the Facebook comment of what I posted that this was my dream photo booth. Like, brides are dreaming of our photo booth, and they're booking us 2 years before their wedding, before they even have their planner or anything solidified, just the venue. And they're like, photo booths next. So it's changed the perception overall, I think, as an industry, how people see it. And our brand and quality has allowed us to be at the top of that when it comes to prices people pay and what they expect.
So how did you build this brand though? Or how can I clarify this question? So you said it's the output, right? It's what they're getting at the end of the day. So are you saying like the final composite of like their photo with the graphics on it? Or is it just like,
I mean, it's everything. It's not just one thing. It's an indicator. It's all part of the overall brand. So you've got everything from everything. So at the very start, I think within the first year of business, I decided to take my branding off of virtually everything. So I wouldn't watermark the photos. Usually initially we put our logo in the bottom left on the gallery online, not on the prints, just the gallery. Even on the prints, we do our website just so they could get the gallery, so they knew where to go and they could download it. But very shortly in, I decided to take all of that off. There was no reference to our name. And it was a risky decision because that's how a lot of people will see the photo strip and like, oh, this company, I want to hire them for my wedding. Yeah. But I took all that off. We never had a tablecloth that had our business name, nothing that said like giant letters, come take a photo here, do all this stuff. I tried to make it really clean, really simple, really classy. And because that was the brand I wanted to represent, was how can I make this a high-end photo booth experience that elevates what people expect out of a photo booth? So they might be calling us saying, oh, I want a fun photo booth. And I'm like, we're not just a fun photo booth. Like, we're about creating this studio photo shoot experience where it's not just silly photos and, stupid props. Like, your guests are going to love what they see in the print or when they share that on social or what they get and then what you see afterwards. So that was part of it, the output, the print, the actual photo taken, all that kind of stuff.
All right. So Matthew, if you had to break your business down, right, and say that you do mainly corporate or private events, where would you say you fall in?
100% private. Like 80% or more of our business is specifically weddings.
In weddings. Okay. And why did you go that route?
I mean, ultimately, it was from the start, I fell into it. As I mentioned, the first event we did was a wedding, kind of figuring it out. We tended to get booked at the beginning for mostly weddings, didn't really position my business any other way. And after doing so many of them, I started to become very familiar with how they operate, with the needs of the brides, the questions they would have, the planners that they would work with, the details around all of it, to become essentially an expert on weddings. So brides would reach out and say, hey, I'm thinking of having you maybe 3 hours, whatever it is. How does this work? Like, what would be the best way to set up? What kind of timing would you recommend? And at the start, I'd say, I have no idea. What do you want? But now I can respond to that and say, oh, well, when is your ceremony? When is your reception? Where are people going to be for cocktail hour? Are you having dinner in the same room as you're thinking, the dancing and everything else? Or is there an after party area? So it can really lay all this stuff out and help them think, basically be a strategic partner in that planning process. I'd feel very confident tomorrow starting a wedding planning business. You know, and that's how much I've been in it and know kind of the lay of the land. And so being a partner with those brides in that process, and then also positioning myself with planners to become basically, you know, I'll call it planner preferred,
Mm.
where they understand us, how we work together, they know what to expect. And for a planner, if they can recommend a company or hire a company that is going to basically be 100% guarantee every single time, that's one less thing on their plate and their bride's plate. So really focused on delivering that through and through helped us to position ourselves in that wedding market as essentially experts in what we're doing.
All right. So when you decided to go, I guess all in and on weddings specifically, uh, was there anything in particular that, or did you do anything on your website to kind of like showcase, hey, like we are the preferred wedding photo booth vendor?
Yeah, most of the photos that I would post were couples, you know, pictures of the bride and groom taking a picture together, kissing, doing whatever. Like that was our focus on Facebook, Instagram, the website, everywhere you looked, it would be couples taking pictures. At some point, I thought that was bad when I started getting some corporate leads, like, oh, they think we're just doing weddings. You know, how do I position it to both of them? But
Yeah.
again, the weddings ended up being my bread and butter. And so just really focusing on the bride and groom, using language that targeted them for at least the beginning parts of exploring that until it just made sense that people know that we're amazing at weddings and can do other things as well. Help to solidify that messaging across.
So another part of the conversation we were having previously, right? We discussed how you're in Tucson, right?
Yep.
But you've got Phoenix, which is right next door.
Yep.
Can you tell me how you decide to? Well, can you tell me where you work more primarily and how you decide to I guess, choose whichever location?
Yeah. So for a while, I had only worked in the Tucson area. We had like, you know, maybe 30, 40-mile radius in general that we would work here. Phoenix, you're talking about hour and a half to 2 hour some drive up north to get there, 150 miles or 100 so miles up there. Didn't think of that as a market. Like Tucson's my market. We're not going to drive that far. I'm not going to hire people out in Phoenix and try to manage that, a whole different beast. I'm just going to grow Tucson and focus on that. Decided to, I was actually thinking about moving at the time. And I know there was a company in Phoenix that was killing it in the photo booth game. I think they were doing seven figures overall, at
Oh,
least
wow.
gross every year. And so that was kind of like inspiration of holy cow, they're doing that just up the street essentially. Why can't I, you know, am I doing something wrong? Is it my market? And that was a big complaint of mine at the time, is I thought I was in a bad market. Like Tucson's lower budget, people don't have as much money. They're coming here to have a resort that's friendly on their wallet, like, or a wedding that's friendly on their wallet, that kind of stuff. So maybe Phoenix is where it's at. So I went to Phoenix, did a bridal show, wasn't super successful, had the best prices, I think, at the bridal show. And that's when I unveiled the glam experience that we do, that we kind of got popular for here. And I got like one booking out of it, barely covered my total cost of going up there and doing all this. So I thought, okay, maybe Phoenix isn't where it's at. That would have told me right away that like this was the market to focus on. But maybe within the next year of doing that, I decided to, since I was doing SEO and I understood how that worked, like maybe I could just do an SEO target on Phoenix and I could start building web content around Phoenix as our market just to see what happens. So I did that. And that's where we ended up getting our biggest results. And we started getting leads the same way organically we were getting leads in Tucson from Phoenix that were asking us to come to their wedding. And what I started to realize is, as I mentioned before, I was, you know, changing my prices as time went on. Between every lead, kind of try something new. Phoenix market would continually, as I raised the prices, they were more likely to book.
Mm.
So for every 10 leads I got in Tucson that reached out that were serious about booking a photo booth, I got maybe one of them would book. But in Phoenix, out of the same 10 leads, I would get five bookings.
Oh, wow.
And of those five bookings, they were incrementally higher price. So I kept charging more, realized, oh, wow, maybe Phoenix is where it's at. You know, maybe there is money here. And I just had to kind of break in and start finding the people who are my customers are not going to a bridal show. Maybe, you know, they're finding us online or through referral or something else. So I started building that market. And yeah, Phoenix took over. It's majority of our business today as far as the city is concerned. And we right now, I mean, my people all travel from Tucson to Phoenix every time there's a wedding or event. Sometimes I stay overnight and do multiple ones. I don't have a team that's up there dedicated to just the Phoenix market. it's getting to the point where it makes sense. But yeah, that's taken over as our primary local market essentially.
You just said something interesting. You said that that your brides or your potential customers probably aren't. You said that. Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on. How did you phrase that? You said
At
that
the
you're.
bridal show.
Yeah. Okay, that's what it is. You said that they weren't at the bridal show, but maybe
Yes.
they were coming from possible referrals or. I think you said Google.
Google search. Yeah. And that's the truth. I
What's the
thought that at the
difference?
time. So I can't say 100% who the entire bridal show market is, but I can tell you
Yeah.
that they're not our customers. And the main difference between who our customers are and who, might be at the bridal show is, why do people go to bridal shows? They go to bridal shows because they don't know what they want and they're looking for a good deal. So it's a huge smorgasbord of vendors that you can essentially go feast on and find the best deal for every service you could possibly want. Our brides are people that know what they want. So when people come to us asking for a photo booth, I'll know right away if they're a customer when they're like, "Hey, we want to get a quote on a photo booth," or "We thought this would be fun." Like, those aren't my customers. People that are will say, "Love what you do. I've been dreaming about this," or "Would love to have you at our wedding," or "This is exactly what I want." They know what it is that they want, and they go search to find it. They're not going to just shop around for a deal. They're going to see who delivers on that.
So, in terms of presentation, right? I think that this is probably somewhere or an easy area for some people to step their game up. What do you think people do wrong in terms of presentation commonly?
You're talking about physically, like in person when they're set up?
Yeah, at the event with everything all put together. Yeah.
Not zipping the backdrop, not having straight tape lines, not dressing the part. Oh my
Mm.
gosh. I make it a point, like, every event we pretty much do, very few exceptions. It's like formal wear or black tie kind of attire. Very high end weddings. If you show up, I've had people that, show up to do like a brand ambassador gig or first time on the job, and I give them the requirements. And if they're not dressed the way, I'm like, go home, or go change. Like, you're not gonna wear tennis shoes to this wedding kind of thing.
Mm.
And that might seem a bit extreme to people, but it's part of, again, that overall brand perception of when you see that the photo booth dude is, dressed almost as nice as the groom. Like, that's like, oh wow,
Oh
they've got their
man,
stuff together. Like, this is,
giving them
don't dress nicer
competition.
than the groom, but but seriously, we try to have presentations. Yeah, tape lines. Like, it's so easy to do a straight tape line, and I've seen people do these janky, like, they're curved or it's sticking out. Or there's a huge bunch of vertical random lines all across it. Um, their photo booth, there's wires hanging out of it. Like, they're not dropping it down the poles where they should run it. They've got all their equipment off to the side, just visible, like a whole cart full of crap sitting there. Like, we, half the time or more than that, we have to load into the venue. And because there's not a specific area that was set aside for our equipment, we have to reload it back to like, go get the vehicle, park it again, reload it, and bring it back to parking. So it's a huge amount of work, but we go that extra mile because we're not going to have our equipment sitting out if there's nowhere to put it.
All right, so Matt, you are strongly entrenched in the weddings niche of the photo booth industry. If you had to pick a different niche in the industry, where would it be?
Well, at this point in time, I mean, I'd stay with weddings. If I could go back and kind of change my approach in terms of how I did business and what my focus was, I probably would not have tried to be a high end provider at the start. I probably would have adjusted my focus to be more profitable and to get more bookings doing one base service. So what I didn't mention, I didn't touch on yet, was I added a lot of crap to my kind of lineup, my portfolio of what I offered clients. So they would say, "Oh, do you do this? Yes. Do you do this? Yes. Do you do," I'd always say yes and figure it out. But ended up having like 30 different services that we were advertising in terms of booth capability and what we could do. And people would ask for it and they'd book it. And so we do, like, one time we do a green screen for the whole year. Another time we do like one of these custom events for the whole year. And just all this crap that, like, I tried to be everything to everyone, and it really just ended up costing me a lot of time and money. So I would have
Mm.
just focused on doing one thing, like, oh, all we do is this package, this photo booth, this many hours, and it's a great price and it's super easy. I'd get equipment that supports it. So equipment that you could set up, in maybe 5 minutes instead of 45 minutes. That's lightweight and easy to transport, so that you could get people to do that and really minimize the technical aspect of anything that could go wrong. So that might be just buying iPad booths and focusing on just doing iPad booths, no prints, no wireless print servers, no crazy advanced designs and just like photos, GIFs, That's all you get. You get a template overlay. And we're going to do as many of those as humanly possible. And we're going to be profitable right at the start. So that's, something I thought about.
So you'd pick one and you would just hyper focus on that one thing. We're going to do this one thing and be the best at it.
Yep.
So what booths were you, I guess, kind of chasing at the beginning? So you said the green screen. Were you doing like the mirror booths and stuff?
I never got into the mirror booth, primarily because I didn't want to lug around a huge, bulky, at least when they came out, mirror, and I don't think I even had room for it in my vehicle at the time. So yeah, didn't do the mirror booth, but just all the, even just adding tech. So not necessarily buying new booths, but like the capabilities within the software and what we offered, trying to keep up with everybody. I was trying to do everything else everybody did. And we're not in a heavy corporate area. There's not a lot of corporate events here. You compare this to like Austin or New York or LA. People aren't coming here throwing a bunch of parties. Like, yeah, you've got your occasional outing, concert, holiday parties happen, obviously, but it's not that type of area. So I wanted to be everything to try to get those clients. I really wanted, I was buying into the corporate game at the beginning of like, oh, if I could get these corporate clients, I could get this, I could get this. But just didn't end up happening. And I realized instead of actually securing more revenue, I was focusing my time and efforts on stuff that was just a waste really doing something one time and not making money on it and then hoping to do it again, but not having the customers pay for it.
So Matt, if you had to compare doing corporate or from the times or the experiences that you've done corporate events to your social events or to your weddings, how would you compare them? Like, what's the difference?
Almost every time, night and day. Corporate events generally are much more of a headache as opposed to our weddings. Our weddings are far more, you'd think, are far more risky or detailed or planned out, but the corporate ones, just everything seems to fall apart. So we get a lead for a wedding, we've got a process, we've got automations, we've got very streamlined, conversation, things that happen in terms of getting them booked, what to do before the event, prepping for the event, showing up, setting up at the event. Usually the biggest thing to that is just confirming the day of timeline the week before and confirming where you're going to be in that area. And then you just do it. We don't typically meet with our brides. I've actually only met with 2 people in the history of my business. Everything else is done over email, some phone calls. But with corporate, we'll get a booking that's the same price as a wedding or maybe a little higher. And again, different where you are. We've certainly had some odd successes, but get a corporate event, let's call it double the price of a wedding for the same number of hours. And we're going back and forth and back and forth. I've got to prep designs. I've got to prep sales sheets, essentially like PowerPoint presentations for them to share out. A lot of these are agencies that are hired by their corporate clients. You've got a middleman now. So everything you tell and say has to be telephoned to someone else who's probably going to get some of it wrong. And then you got to go back. So a lot of back and forth, a lot of price negotiations. Most of the corporate events that I had essentially bid on in the past, we got outbid on. But they don't just tell you like to put in a price and then you're outbid. They basically make you go through the whole rigmarole. And then at the very end, a day before the event, like, oh yeah, sorry, we went another direction or we hired someone else. Or like, it's not going to work out. So you're wasting all this time, effort, energy to make it happen. And even when it does work, we get hired. Sometimes we don't get paid for quite a while after that, whether it's a purchase order or someone just
net 30, net 60,
net 70, net 90, net whatever,
net never,
whatever they're feeling like. Yeah. So yeah, you don't get the money right away. You show up and they're like, oh crap, actually everything changed. Instead of being indoors like we promised in the contract, now you're outside and we don't have a tent for you. And you also need to set up faster because we're starting earlier than intended. You're like, oh, thank you. Wow, appreciate that. So yeah, just tons of bull crap that I've put up with personally. And, I can't speak to everybody or every event because again, there are those exceptions I've had, but weddings typically don't give me that kind of crap. The brides even write us raving reviews after the fact and say how amazing it was working with us. Corporate try to get them to write a review and it's like pulling teeth. So, probably out of majority of the events we've done, out of let's say 50 corporate events, I've got like 5 reviews from those clients. Otherwise I can't even bother asking for.
For everybody who says that they want to get into corporate, or for every 5 people that say they want to get into corporate, there's one who's, looking at corporate and saying, nope, not for me. I'm going to stick right where I'm at, which is comfortable, and just dominate there. And you're one of those people. So, congratulations on that success. And right now, so I think last we spoke, you said that at this point in your business, we're 6 months in, 5 months in. Where are you guys looking right now in terms of revenue?
Yeah, we're within this time next month, should have exceeded last year's gross. So basically over 150, and this year shooting for 200 plus net, is what I'm expecting based on our current bookings and traffic and expectations. So I mean, huge way from not being profitable for 3 years, and it took a while to get here, but
Yeah.
ultimately that's the payoff of a brand and of SEO. Is it's that long-term growth, that long-term potential of you get to that point and you're recognized, and now you can continue delivering at that level for what it's worth, not just deliver where you should be and charging a subcharging for a portion of that.
All right, so let's put these guys on alert, Matt. Where are you looking at next in terms of putting your SEO efforts in place?
It's already been done, man.
It's
You should have already been on alert. Yeah, I've started since marketing across the U.S. essentially, and really trying to this year and moving forward. I'm focusing on white label efforts of expanding my brand in other states through white label. Local people that are working there that can represent our brand the way that I want it to be represented. So, in the past several months since I started that, I mean, I'd say half of our leads now are from out of state altogether.
Wow, nice.
And it's at the same level of traffic. We get nonstop people messaging for different states. So yeah, that's the current goal, is to try to get essentially half of what we do in white label in addition to what we're currently doing, which allows us to expand without team, more equipment, more costs out of pocket essentially, and can keep us growing.
So, Matt, as we end things out, I'm going to ask you this question, but you kind of answered it, but we'll see if we can go a little bit more in depth into it. But if you were to start your photo booth business all over again and you only have a $5,000 budget, what photo booth would you buy and why?
I would buy whatever photo booth on the market now is lightweight, has a mount for a flash, an umbrella, or bounce dish, and supports a Surface computer essentially for full DSLR and photo booth capabilities with prints. I would do that because after lugging equipment around, I love my min booth and my setup, but I dread doing events myself, and that's why I have a team of people. I don't like to break my back lifting stuff upstairs or moving things around. So I would go the lightest possible route that you could to get the photo booth that still checks the boxes for the product you want to deliver on.
And why would it be a DSLR booth?
I think for the DSLR booth, you just have more capability in terms of delivering quality. And that to me is important. May not be your thing. You may be focused more on experiential than quality of the output. But to me, that's the easiest way to accomplish a good output consistently, is DSLR booth with studio flash setup. iPad, lots of people might argue, oh, you could do the same with the right lighting or the right iPad or whatever. You could get close. You could do things that, are decent, similar, but DSLR for me is still the photo booth, still be my preference in photo booth.
All right. I love it as an answer, Matt. Listen, for the people who want to get a hold of you, how can they get in touch, Matt?
You can email me, info@flashbulbphotobooth.com. Find me on Facebook. Message me on Facebook is probably quicker. If you drop in the message, you got 100 questions, you want me to run your business for you, I'll probably respond, sorry, I can't help with this, but happy to help out when I can, where I can. If it's something longer term, coaching, whatever, like maybe we can set something up. But don't expect me to give you free advice, or not necessarily free advice, but expect me to run your business for you.
All right. So just know what you're coming into if you slide in his DMs.
There you go.
All right, Matt, it has been a pleasure having you here, man. It's always great talking to you. And next time around, we got to talk Airbnb out in your area.
Yes, sir. That's the newest project.